And we're back at Pablo's in Brooklyn, New York, Newkirk Plaza. We're not advertising, folks, but this is a place we would like to thank them very much for their hospitality. This is a place you want to be. This is the LMS show. I am having a good time talking about nostalgia, talking about the music that you sit back. What were you doing at a particular time when these songs came out? Did you have someone up in the corner? And squeeze it up? Yeah. Oh, I remember those records, those times and those songs too. Stan Tillman is with us. Give him a big hand. And
Thank you.
Stan the man of the hour. Yeah, LMS, y'all. And we have a young gentleman just happened to drop out, but we want to hear his perspective. Your name, my friend?
My name is Harold Rosenblum, and thank you for the young.
Young, yes. Tell us a bit about yourself, Harold.
Well, let's see. I've been in this neighborhood. I came to this neighborhood in 1940. Okay. I was 4 years old. Okay. This past Tuesday, I'm 76 now.
God bless you, yes. God bless you. You went to
I went to Erasmus.
Erasmus, okay. A lot of famous celebrities went to Erasmus. Hey! Yeah, give us our props. It was Brooklyn's in the house right here.
Yeah.
And
Graduated.
My producer, he told me, hey, remind me. I was there too. Erasmus, Mr.
Graduated in 1953.
Okay.
Yep. And I've just been in the neighborhood, and it's a great neighborhood. It's quiet now. It was beautiful when my parents came here, right? And got a little messy, a little bad, but now it's turned around.
Yes.
We're getting good foods coming in and restaurants. And,
oh, okay, like here. We're not advertising.
It's a better neighborhood. But as I said, I was mostly in jazz.
What kind of jazz? Because jazz intertwines into.
Let's go classic jazz.
Classic jazz. Okay, tell us.
We used to go to Birdland all the time, up on 50th and Broadway.
All right.
Saw Count Basie and
oh, okay.
And all their stars there. Every Friday when they changed programs, we used to go up. Friends of ours used to go up. And I've always been into jazz. No rock and roll, but jazz was and still is. I still listen to BGO and the jazz stations and so forth.
We had to support. I mean, I'm not they had cool style jazz and all this kind of.
No,
you had to support like the real deal, right?
Yeah, I more or less go back to the real deal.
The real deal. Okay.
Before bebop came in, went to see all the jazz stars and enjoyed myself, doing it. We had a lot of fun.
Who was your favorites?
Well, the favorite band I had was Count Basie.
Count Basie. He's a very classy man. I remember I met him once. I was in Washington, D.C., and a week before, he was on the Jackie Gleason show. And I went down there, I said, aren't you Count Basie? He said, oh, yes. He was very, very, very nice. He was very nice. And he was very active. I think him and his wife, they were very active in charities, too.
Yeah, no, I liked his band. His tempo and everything about the piano, the bass, the drums were all upbeat, and they were pounding, and that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, that's what you like. Yeah.
But
he performed with Count Basie performed with Frank Sinatra. He did the album.
Oh yeah, I went to one of the best shows I saw Frank Sinatra. We saw Frank Sinatra 4 times.
Okay.
My wife, myself, and the best one that I liked was at the old Eurus Theater. It had Count Basie, Frank Sinatra, and Ella Fitzgerald.
Ellis. Oh, Ellis
It
Fitzgerald.
was
The makeup jazz.
unbelievable.
Oh, you hear that, Stan?
Yeah, the makeup jazz.
Oh, man.
She was probably the singer I liked the best of all of them at that time.
You know,
Dinah Washington and all the others.
You know, I was reading a book by Bob Barker, and he mentioned that he met his wife. You know, he took his wife to to a club, and Ellis Fitzgerald was there. He always talks about that. He mentioned in his book. He always talks about that.
Went to. We used to go to. There used to be around the corner. There was Basin Street East.
Yes. Okay.
Around the corner from
along
Birdland.
there, but understand that you could cut it. What you come along there, along 52nd Street. It was
Right.
the Jazz Street.
Well,
it was
yeah,
nothing
it
but
was
jazz
jazz.
clubs.
In Birdland.
Right.
Birdland. They had
No, Birdland, but 52nd Street from
Okay.
from Broadway down to 5th.
Yes,
Right?
okay.
Were all the jazz clubs.
Okay.
Birdland was about 50th Street and Broadway, as where they separated 7th and Broadway. It was there. Around the corner was Basin Street East. Saw Errol Gardner there. Loved him as, great pianist. And then across the way, there was a bar called the Metropole.
Okay.
The Metropole had Dixieland type of music. You
Really,
walked
New
in-
York had that back then.
You walked in. Oh no! Tell you what. There was down on East Village on 2nd Street.
Okay.
There was a place called the Central Plaza,
Okay.
and on Friday nights there, it was like a catering hall. But on the 2nd floor, Friday nights, it was like an upstairs Rathskeller, right? And it was only Dixieland jazz all night. All bands used to come in there, and every night and just drink beer and sit around, and it was a big place because it was a big catering hall.
You know,
We used to go there on.
I'm
on
glad
Friday.
you mentioned that too, because
It was-
there's something that in New York, quiet as it kept, which we're lax. We don't have too many venues for the people to perform that much anymore. Maybe for I'm not advertising
Well,
the King Club, but
there are
there's
some,
but there are a few. Because remember, you used to have the Bottom Line. With Alan Pepper and they used to have
Village
places,
Vanguard
and the Village Gate. They don't have these places anymore.
Well,
I think with the case of the what's the name? Alan, what's the name? What's the name? What club I mentioned? The Bottom Line.
Right.
The Bottom Line. Some college took over. And that one.
probably.
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
I think Village Vanguard still. That's still there. Village Gate, that's gone. Right.
Another one
Yeah.
called Blue Angel.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That's still there, but that's where I went, and that's where we went. I used to go to Carnegie Hall. They used to have Jazz at the Philharmonic
Oh, okay.
at Carnegie Hall. I used to go to all their shows when they came in. My wife and myself, we used to go there and enjoy it. It was an all-night affair. At that time, it wasn't that expensive to go to.
Oh, believe me, we're not talking about now.
I used to see Count Basie do Ellington, but
Okay.
this was at the New York Paramount Theater.
Okay.
We had stage shows, movies, and everything else.
Right.
I seen the Andrews Sisters. I seen Tony Pastor.
Okay.
It's Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Louis Jordan in Symphony 5.
Oh, he was one of the forerunners that you're talking about, the forerunner of rock and roll.
Yes.
Yeah. Cali, yeah.
Cab Calloway.
Cab Calloway.
When I was a youngster, it was during the war, and they had a bond drive. So we were in Manhattan. My father stopped and he bought a bond. And when you bought the bond, depending on the price of the bond that you bought, they gave you 2 tickets to a show, a big band show at New York, either Roxy or the New York Paramount. So I went with a cousin of mine, went there, and almost every band that was in and around the city and in and around was at the show. I mean, there was Gene Krupa and his band, Count Basie and his band, Duke Ellington and his band, Tommy Dorsey. Every band, there had to be about 15 bands on a rotating stage that came around. It was all for, for the bond drive, and that's where I really started to get into the band. But that's when we had no television. I didn't have. I don't think my parents got television until 1949. At about that time, so there was no television. So what you did, you listened to the radio, and all the bands were on the radio. The big bands were on the radio, and that's what I grew up with. I grew up with the big bands. I grew up with jazz and so forth and so on, and that's still.
That's what I used to do. I used to listen to the radio, Make Believe Bowl and Martin Block.
Right.
And on his show, he used to introduce records. He said, well, let's get on to the Paramount Theater where Duke Ellington's playing, and he would play his record. And you would think that you were at the New York Paramount. He made you feel like you were right at the theater.
That's what about radio.
Yes, use your imagination.
Because I have some I order radio tapes, and like some of the old shows like How Miss Brooks, and I ordered Amos and Andy, and it's just like I like the TV version. It was good too, but look like the radio version. They picture like Kingfish was coming up with a scheme or something like that, but or the dramas, the radio is like. It's the theater of imagination. A lot of people don't have a lot of imagination nowadays.
I'll tell you one thing too. When Frank Sinatra was at the Paramount, my sister was called one of those days the Bobby Soxers, and they were like a group of girls that get onto the Paramount. And every time when Frank Sinatra would get on stage and sing a song, all the girls would swoon and everything. I mean, it was all done by his manager to start the ball rolling for him. And then in future years, the crowds got bigger and bigger and bigger. Everybody was swooning in the whole theater.
Well, talking about going to the Paramount, when the shows changed at the Paramount, stage shows changed at the Paramount, the morning shows, I think it started at like 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning. No one went to school.
What?
When I went to Erasmus.
Now you're telling my story, because I used to go to the Paramount. I used to tell my mother I'm going to school, but I was done at the Paramount by 8 o'clock. By 5:30, I first came home. So my mother used to say, "How did you enjoy school?" I said, "It taught me a lot."